All right, welcome back to Niners Nightly, and it's our pleasure to welcome to the KMBR airwaves Todd Husak, and of course you hear him on pre and post on Niner football, and I'm really excited this year. I get a chance to sit next to Todd in the press box and pick his brain and maybe annoy the hell out of him as we're watching
No,
Niner
never.
football. But he's with us on the UMA guest line. Todd, how are you to talk Niners?
I'm doing great. College football starting tonight on Thursday, and 1 week away from the start of the NFL season. So I'm excited. And cut down day, and things are starting to take shape. Big trade in the NFL. So, yeah, I'm excited about how this season is shaping up for the 49ers. I think they have still some elite top-end talent. And now let's figure out how quickly they can get some of that youth to come along on the defensive side.
Before we get to the Niners, let's talk about the story of the day. Micah Parsons traded from the Cowboys to the Packers, 2 number 1 picks going back, and Kenny Clark. I mean, if that is indeed the total price, I think that's kind of a steal. But Green Bay is also paying the freight on that big contract. Dallas can't because they paid that money to Prescott. Give me your thoughts on the Cowboy Packer trade, which undoubtedly shakes up the landscape in the NFC.
Yeah, I think Micah Parsons has established himself as one of the premier pass rushers. I saw a note, only 2 players in the history of the NFL have recorded 12 sacks their first 4 years. It's Micah Parsons and Reggie White. So he's an elite company. That being said, I don't know if I'd feel comfortable paying him $47 million a year. It eats up such a huge portion of your salary cap, and on the defensive side, especially when you need to spread that money around to different players. I think it makes sense for a team that needs to win now, and maybe he can be that missing piece for the Packers defense. They really haven't had a pass rusher over the last 5-6 years that can consistently get to the quarterback, put pressure on. If they can put pressure on a quarterback with just 4 down linemen rushing, that makes the entire defense better. So I think they're in win now mode. So it makes sense for them short term. I think long term, it's like paying a quarterback that much money. There's less money to spend on the other positions that are also very critical. And so they need some young players. And I think the 49ers in that position now, paying their quarterback and Brock Purdy, they got to find some other young players to step up. So I see where I think Jerry Jones handled it so poorly, being public about it. The fact that they could not come to terms, or at least do it behind closed doors where, I don't know if you saw Parsons in the last preseason game. He's like taking a nap on the sideline. It's just bad optics for everybody involved. And I think that shows that the Cowboys just aren't for real, whether it's keeping their players happy or at least settling that before it becomes ugly, which I think it did become ugly at the end. They get a couple first-round draft picks and a player in return. Maybe that will help them build. But the Cowboys just seem to find themselves in this position where I don't think they won this transaction. I don't think their players are super happy on how it went down, and we'll see how they can bounce back, missing out on one of their top players, probably one of their top 2 or 3 players on the team. Now he's gone. Can they get off to a good start, or is there some discontent there? And we'll see if that's the missing piece for the Packers, who I think now are in the conversation for top teams in the NFC.
It's so interesting. I mean, I think this is, one of the NFL's best organizations in the Packers, and one of the NFL's worst. I think Jerry Jones is a brilliant businessman and a terrible football man. And it's funny, this Netflix documentary, which I'm into a little bit, about 2 episodes in on the Cowboys. If you had told me there was going to be a Netflix documentary on the Cowboys, I would have thought, absolutely, this would be great. But a documentary usually takes a real, honest look at things, and this isn't a documentary. This is a Jerry Jones lifetime project, because he wants it. He knows he's not going to be here long, and so he wants to rewrite his own legacy. The reality is, when they won the 2nd Super Bowl over the Niners, they were the best team in the NFL. They were the youngest team in the NFL, and they were absolutely on top like nobody had ever been on top, and they have not won since they chased out Jimmy and won one time with Switzer. But it's funny. It's like Jerry was right, I guess, because he said 500 guys could coach the Cowboys, and he picked Switzer, and he got Switzer a ring with Jimmy's guys. But he's been wrong ever since, and he's been a huge failure ever since along the way. They're a multi-billion dollar outfit business-wise, in the Star and the Jerry's world. That's all successful. He's done a lot of successful things, but he's an absolute abject failure as a football man.
He hasn't been able to do much sense. And not been able to win, but kind of a sideshow throughout the year, like all the antics. And I think when you have the owner front and center, I was drafted by at the time, Redskins, Dan Snyder's first year owning the team, and he was front and center and wanted to be, the face of the organization. He didn't know anything about football. I think Jerry Jones knows something about football, but you gotta hire the right people and let them do their job. Let him be the business side. But the fact that he's so involved, and you get the stories coming out where he's upset that Micah's agent was so involved. Like, Jerry, what are you talking about? Like, the agent is involved. He's the point man running it. Like, just the way they seem to handle things, mishandle things consistently. I think you're right. I think they've been close to being a top team. They seem to fall apart, and then really building the team through the draft is how it's been done over the last decade. You pick the right quarterback, build around, and then hope you get the right guy for the next 10 years, pay him, and then continue to build around with young draft picks. And I don't think Dak has been the guy. Tony Romo was good, but not great. And they've just seemingly missed on draft picks and not keeping their players happy. I just think it's too bad, because the NFL, a lot of people love the Cowboys. Even more people hate the Cowboys. And when they're relevant, that brings that brings eyeballs. So I think the NFL is more interesting when they're good, and they just haven't been very good. They're kind of a sideshow. So we'll see how this trade impacts both the Cowboys. I can't imagine the players in that locker room are very happy how it went down. And I got to imagine the Packers are pumped to have one of the top pass rushers in the NFL.
Yeah, and the Packers could do this trade because Brian Gutekunst has been that good in the draft, and they've got their expenses pretty in check. Let's talk Niners. JJ remains out, hold in, injured, whatever. He's not there. Wasn't there today. They picked up Marquez Valdez-Scantling. He was on the practice field today. Big guy who can clearly move. Talked to him after practice in front of his locker. And then there's a report this afternoon that the Niners are going to meet with Kendrick Bourne on Monday, and he's maybe going to meet with the Commanders on Tuesday. What do you think of those names, Todd? I asked MVS today what was the key factor in picking the Niners over the Steelers, and he said he worked with the Kubiaks before. He knows the system, so he feels like he could hit the ground running. So I think that's why he chose the Niners. But what do you think of those two receivers, Marquez Valdez-Scantling and Kendrick Bourne?
Well, Valdez-Scantling has the speed and the size to be a top receiver for certainly. What drew you to the Niners? I think the fact that they don't have a number 2 wide receiver right now. If I'm a free agent or a wide receiver looking for a place to land, the 49ers wide receiver room has to look pretty appealing for somebody to come in and play right away. He's a big body who can run. I think his hands have been a little inconsistent, which is a little troubling. Kendrick Bourne has been here. He's done it. Is he a wide receiver 2? That's probably a stretch. But that's the reality of it. You're not finding a wide receiver 2 right now out of guys that have been cut by other NFL teams or certainly on the free agent market. So I think the 49ers are in a tough position where they really just need a Band-Aid for the first month of the season. Once DeMarcus Robinson comes back, I think he's a real wide receiver 2. By the way, is Ricky Pearsall wide receiver 1? We haven't seen enough of him, but he is by far their best receiver in that wide receiver who's able to play week 1. Juwan Jennings being back and happy would be huge for the 49ers. I think everybody recognizes his value to the team. But I also think we talked about Micah Parsons. You don't want to overpay a guy who's had one really good year. He was good last year, not over 1,000 yards. 2 years ago, Larry, what did he have? 2 touchdowns? Like, I'd love to see Juwan Jennings get paid, but also recognize he's not a wide receiver 1. Come in, get paid, maybe take a little pay bump, but your real value is going to come if you have another good year and then another good year. And then you can command that $30 million salary that some of the top wide receivers are getting. We don't know what he's asking for. We don't know what the 49ers are willing to do, but I do think the 49ers have to be very careful in setting the precedent. I think they maybe feel a little burned last year by maybe overpaying Brandon Ayuk, who ends up coming back, not ready for the season, gets hurt. might be a little sticker shock for them. And do they want to overpay another wide receiver who really didn't have the track record, certainly, that Ayuk had coming in? I think they want guys who are committed. And right now, Juwan Jennings, maybe the calf injury is real, but is that a guy you want to invest in who's, I think, only practiced 3 times in the last 4 months? Like, do you feel good giving that guy $15 million when he hasn't been available? So I think back to your original question, Valdez-Scantling, certainly an upgrade over what they have. Kendrick Bourne would be an upgrade over what they have. But right now they don't have much. So it's really, let's get through the first 3-4 weeks, get Demarcus Robinson back. We'll see Jordan Watkins. I think Cowing is going to be out for the first 5 or 6 weeks of the season. Once Ayuk comes back, by week 8, that wide receiver room could be one of the top in the NFC West. And so it's what's their record when those guys come back healthy and ready to play?
It's a great question. I'll say this. I'm going to make a prediction here. I know there's been a lot of talk about a lot of these guys, right? A lot of talk about Pearsall, a lot of talk about Juwan Jennings and the holdout. This week, there's been a lot of talk about Sky Moore. We've heard about, Russell Gage, Robbie Chosen. I mean, lots and lots of different guys. Ayuk, we've heard about Ayuk. MVS, we're hearing about. I'll make the prediction right now. Based on what I've seen, the guy who looks the best on the field, and I think when it all shakes out, it may take a week or two, but when all these guys get on the field and everybody does what they can do, watch out for Jordan Watkins, because even though he's a rookie, he's got great speed. He played in a big-time conference. He looks great. He worked out today on the side field. He was flying up and down the field. That he's got speed. He's got strength. He's played with some great players in college. I think Watkins is going to be absolutely incredible. I got to ask you, though, before we let you go, because I know you're up against it. Quarterback wise, give us your quarterback perspective. JJ and Brock haven't really thrown the ball this year. If the Niners bring in Kendrick Bourne, he's got no experience with Brock. Today was MVS's first experience with Brock. You're a quarterback. How long do you have to have? How many reps? Is it a half hour of good discussion about, hey, I want it here, I want it there, I like it this way, I like it that way? Is it multiple days? Is it weeks? How long do you need to get in step with a wide receiver you've never thrown to before?
I think it's weeks, realistically.
Weeks, really?
I think it's, and you can teach guys where to line up and what route to run, but I think the first few days and even weeks, that's going to be their main focus. All right, I hear the play call. Where do I line up? What do I do? What route? Then they're looking at the defense and, all right, I'm coming out of my break. And that needs to be second nature for him to be on the same page with Brock Purdy. And the 49ers run a lot of shifts and motions, and it's a pretty complex offensive system. It's not just line up and run a go. It's line up in the slot. You're motioning to the left. Now you got to read the defense. What's that outside linebacker doing? What's that safety doing? Is he coming down? Am I seeing the same thing Brock Purdy's seeing? That just takes time and reps. And we saw it last year with Ayuk, who had worked with Brock Purdy. He didn't all last preseason, and they clearly were not on the same page the first couple games of last year. So I think it takes time and reps and getting a comfort level where the quarterback and the wide receiver are seeing the same things on the same page, expecting the ball a certain way. And that's going to take some time. That's where I think it's a fascinating experience where we're basically a week and a half away from kickoff, and there's basically one guy in Ricky Pearsall who missed most of the preseason with injury that's comfortable with Brock Purdy. And so I like Jordan Watkins. I think he has a chance. I really like what Demarcus Robinson did in the preseason. I think he's a big, strong body that can go over the middle and make those tough catches. And clearly Brock Purdy and him had a good connection. Week 4 will be, I think, a huge step up, getting him back, whoever they fill that wide receiver room with. I think Jordan Watkins would be certainly an added bonus. But they just need some guys that can come in and line up and get it done. And I'd prefer guys who have done it in the NFL already, even if it hasn't been with Brock Purdy necessarily. But, yeah, get Kendrick Bourne in there. Valdez-Scantling has made some big plays. I don't think he's as consistently reliable as some of the other receivers. Like Sky Moore has some good quickness. He's a slot guy. But right now, he's basically your wide receiver 2. So they're going to need 4 on game day, and how they fill it out will be, there's still some question marks there. Now, the good news, you got Kittle, you got McCaffrey. With Brian Robinson, do they spread McCaffrey in the slot a little bit and create some matchup problems with him? That might be one of your better options. And do you use 2 tight ends more? I think there's some ways that Shanahan can disguise or maybe make up for some of the weaknesses in that wide receiver room, because there's still plenty of playmakers on the offense. But come Sunday, when they're going to start game planning and put that in, they've got to have some answers. And maybe Juwan Jennings is back, maybe he's not. You'd love to see that get figured out sooner than later. But either way, I'm not sure people are going to be happy about it. So
I'll let you go. It's time to go. But appreciate you. Adrian Martinez is the latest quarterback in town. Todd, good to see you. We'll talk to you soon.
Bye.
There you go. The great Todd Husak stopping by on Niners Nightly. And Todd said he had a good tight window tonight. And then, Todd, come on. It's time to go. Awesome to have Todd on and to talk a little football with him. We've got more straight ahead. It's Niners Nightly on a Thursday on the Sports Leader.